All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to look closely at the step-by-step making of a true sporting legend, Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, we all know the name, right? We all know the massive CR7 brand. But the actual granular steps of how he got there from absolute poverty, honestly, it's a story of almost impossible odds, and we're going to map it all out today.
Just think about this stark contrast for a second. We're talking about a kid who, when he first moved to Lisbon, was so poor and homesick that he'd literally wait outside a local McDonald's at 11 p.m., just hoping the employees would take pity on him and hand out leftover burgers. So, how do you go from those hungry nights on the street to topping the Forbes billionaire list? Well, let's break it down.
Section 1, the boy from Madeira. Let's start with those incredibly humble beginnings.
So he was the youngest of 4 kids in a deeply struggling family in Funchal, and he faced some immense hardships right from the start, including a father battling severe alcoholism and a mother working tirelessly as a cleaner just to make ends meet. Yet his pure, unadulterated obsession with football blossomed on those dirty hometown streets. In fact, his family was so burdened by poverty that his very first football wasn't even, a real ball. It was literally just a bundle of rogs tied together. But he'd skip meals, he'd skip school, all just to play with it. And get this, when he made his first real club transfer to CD Nacional, which was one of the biggest clubs on the island, the transfer fee was just 20 footballs and some training equipment. I mean, that's it. A pretty far cry from the hundreds of millions he'd command later in his historic career. But even then, his sheer talent was totally undeniable. He was already sweeping up Best Player awards at nearly every local tournament. Moving on to Section 2, trials at Sporting CP, which was a massive leap of faith. At just 12 years old, he leaves his family to travel 1,000 kilometers away to Lisbon. And his ascent there was rapid, but man, was it turbulent. He dealt with terrible homesickness, bullying over his thick island accent, but he relentlessly pushed forward to break into professional football. Sporting actually signed him for just 1,500 euros, which in hindsight is the steal of the century. But his journey was almost permanently cut short, right in the middle of his youth development. Imagine this. You're 15, living far away from your struggling family, and doctors tell you your heart beats too fast, a resting rate of over 100 beats a minute. They basically say you might have to give up the only thing in the world you love. It's a terrifying hurdle, but Sporting CP took swift action. Doctors literally used a laser to cauterize parts of his heart. And Ronaldo? His fierce determination meant he refused to let it slow him down for even a week. He was remarkably back on the pitch in just days. What you really need to take away from this era is his undeniable talent. He became the very first player in the club's history to play for 5 different teams in a single season. By the time he was 16, he was just blitzing through the ranks. His speed, his dribbling, it was so mesmerizing that his coaches literally had to yell at him to stop him from trying to take on the entire opposing team single-handedly.
Okay, Section 3, forging a Manchester United star. This is the ultimate crucible moment.
He steps into Old Trafford inheriting the incredibly heavy pressure of the legendary number 7 shirt, previously worn by absolute icons like David Beckham and Eric Cantona. Sir Alex Ferguson had rushed the signing, paying a then-record £12 million for a teenager. But within 29 minutes of his debut against Bolton, rocking those elaborate stepovers and dyed blonde hair, he instantly mesmerized the fans. He proved exactly why he was brought to the Theatre of Dreams, earning massive praise from club legend George Best. But then, tragedy struck. He was just 20 years old, away on international duty, when he got the devastating news that he had lost his father to a liver problem. Now, instead of crumbling, he channeled this intense, unimaginable personal grief into a pure dedication to become the absolute best player in the world. He famously stated he couldn't do anything for his father that day, so he would play the next day. He used that devastating loss to forge a work ethic that's now the stuff of legend. 42. Just wrap your head around that number. That was his staggering goal tally in the legendary 2007 to 2008 season, catapulting him to his first Ballon d'Or and a Champions League victory. He had set a personal target of 40 goals, which honestly seemed completely absurd for a winger playing in a standard 4-4-2 formation. But by relentlessly practicing free kicks and striking from literally every possible angle, he smashed that goal. He even scored a towering header in the Champions League final in Moscow, officially cementing his status as the best player on the planet. Which brings us to Section 4, the Real Madrid era, total global dominance.
So having conquered England, he wanted a new challenge.
And in 2009, a then world record fee of £80 million brought him to Madrid, where an astonishing 80,000 screaming fans welcomed him. Real Madrid spared absolutely no expense. The pressure was sky high. I mean, his contract had a €1 billion buyout clause. Yet somehow, the expectations still fell short of what he was actually about to deliver.
I want you to look closely at this data, because his transformation into a historic goal-scoring machine practically defies logic. Scoring 311 goals in 292 league games, that is more than a goal a game for nearly a decade. It's insane. He formed the terrifying BBC attacking trio alongside Benzema and Bale, securing an unprecedented 3 consecutive Champions League titles and picking up 4 more Ballon d'Or trophies along the way. And of course, this era was completely defined by a rivalry that pushed 2 radically different players to legendary heights. It wasn't just Real Madrid versus Barcelona, right? It was 2 distinct philosophies of greatness. You had Messi, who was often viewed as possessing these natural, magical gifts. And then you had Ronaldo, the ultimate symbol of engineered perfection. He was a walking testament to what absolute, obsessive dedication to your craft can actually achieve. They literally forced each other to break records year after year. Let's look at Section 5, Conquering New Leagues. The guy just never settles.
4, that is the magic number here. He's the only player in history to score 100 goals for 4 different clubs: Manchester United, Real Madrid, Juventus, and Al Nassr. He moved to Italy, won Serie A, returned briefly to Old Trafford, top scored for United, and then he completely flipped the global market on its head by moving to the Saudi Pro League, becoming the first player ever to be the top scorer in 4 different national leagues. Wherever he goes, he simply adapts and conquers.
But his impact isn't just about scoring for clubs. His leadership goes way beyond having the ball at his feet. As the most capped male player and all-time leading goal scorer in international history, Euro 2016 was his absolute crowning achievement for his nation. He was forced off the pitch with an injury early in the final. Most players would head to the locker room to sulk, right? Not him. He hobbled up and down the sidelines, basically acting as a second coach, barking orders and inspiring his teammates to a massive 1-0 victory over France.
And finally, Section 6, the legacy of a legend, reaching billionaire status.
What's fascinating is how his extreme discipline off the pitch honors his late father's struggles. He doesn't drink a single drop of alcohol, a direct result of losing his dad to it. He refuses to get tattoos, just so he can continually donate blood and bone marrow. It's this incredibly strict adherence to his health and his image that eventually catapulted him onto Forbes' World's Billionaires list, proving his value transcends what happens during those 90 minutes on the pitch.
To put his reach into perspective, 1 billion followers across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. He was literally the first person on the planet to ever achieve this. His personal brand, CR7, is an absolute global powerhouse. It is a very, very long way from those days of sweeping the streets in Madeira.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder about the boy who begged for leftover burgers and went on to conquer the globe. Is Cristiano Ronaldo the ultimate proof that relentless hard work and an unbreakable mindset can elevate you above even the most naturally gifted talents? Take a look back at the sheer will it took to get from a ragged ball to 1 billion followers, and let that inspire your own journey. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep pushing your own limits.